Hi, I'm Charlie Collins, and this is the Donegal Sport Hub Donegal Daily Championship Podcast. And you're welcome back, and we're delighted to be back here on our Championship Podcast on Donegal Daily and Donegal Sport Hub. We've come to the business end of the Championships, you might say, with lots of knockout matches in the next number of weeks, and we're going to be here for the next 5 or 6 weeks to keeping you up to date with what's happening and talking about what might happen. I'm delighted to say that Danny O'Donnell and John Harn have rejoined me. They have made a couple of cameo appearances on other podcasts, but they're remaining loyal to us for this year anyway. They have a couple of big offers on the table, but anyway, they're going to be here for the next 5 or 6 weeks as well. Guys, you're welcome. Good to see you back. Thanks, and good to be back, John, talking about the Championship, because the last 5 or 6 weeks have been busy and lots of things happening.
They have, Charlie, with the split season now, it's it's starting up earlier, which is great to see, because the players are getting chances to play on better pitches and faster pitches, and it's good. You can go to a match and you don't have to bring all your rain gear with you, so it's good for supporters too, Cherry. And the group stages have been exciting. There's been some good games. Some teams are stepping up. Some teams are maybe in bother that they didn't think they would be in bother. So plenty to talk about, Cherry. It's great to be back at it again. Yeah,
Danny, plenty to talk about indeed. And as John said, good for some teams, other teams not too good. We're going to look at the Senior Championship now. The final round of matches yesterday has thrown up the top 8, the middle 4 who are safe in senior football, and the bottom 4. And there's a big split, really, isn't there, with what has happened in the Championship over the last 4 weeks?
Yeah, it seems to be, Charlie, based on the results and this split we have on the 16 teams. You have like Group 1 and Group 2, and according to the results, obviously one group is much stronger than the other. I think 7 of the 8 quarter-finalists are coming from, if you call it Group 1, with New Connell being the exception in Group 2. But I had a look at that before we spoke this evening, and pre-Championship, if we looked at last year's 8 quarter-finalists, 5 of them were in Group 1 and 3 in Group 2. So going into the Championship, it didn't look like an obvious strength versus weak. Yeah. Just as the way it happens to transpire. I think the 2 teams from Group 2 that are probably underachieved in that would be McCool's and Glenfin, both quarter-finalists last year. So the expectation might have been that they might have stepped up and made the quarter-final. But I think in both those cases, they got tough draws. I know McCool's ended up playing... They played Unions yesterday, obviously, and I think they also ended up in the Bridge, and they ended up in Gweedore, didn't they? Yeah, so they had a tough draw. And Glenfin had Glenswilly, Killybegs, Kilcar. So it really comes down then to the luck of the draw, Charlie. And if you get a bad draw, you're really not likely to qualify from whatever section you're in. So
let's stay in that theme, John, because I was just saying before we started here, in that Group 1, there was 64 points available, 32 matches played over the period of 8 matches a week. 51 of those points went to the Group A teams, the teams that played away in the final round, that played at home in the first round. 51 out of 64, 13 to the other group, and Niamh Connell got 7 of them. So there were 7 teams that only got 6 points between them. Is the imbalance too big? Is there something we need to do to look at to see what we can do?
Yeah, probably, Charlie. That's just the second year now. It's been a wee bit lopsided, so it's probably something we're going to have to look at. It's very hard to get it right, Jerry. I would be a believer that a championship's a championship. It's open draw. You get the luck of the draw some years, you don't. Many a year, Jerry, for years when it was the home and away, when I was playing St. Junan's, time and time again got the hardest draw of the first round. Now, we were always maybe county champions or be beaten, but we always got tough draws against the next best team, be it Niamh Connell in 07. We got Glenswilly in 08. We played Kilcar in 2012. Maybe, there's other examples too, Cherry, but I can't remember. So, sometimes it's for you, sometimes it's not. It's a championship. What I've said before is that the best teams will probably always come to the top. You might get the best 4 or the best 3. They'll be in the last 4, and then it's all the good teams are there. Whoever's going to win it's going to win it. It's probably too lopsided, Charlie, and I think we were discussing beforehand that maybe there's time to seed the quarter-finalists. The top 8 teams this year will go 4 on one side of the draw next year and 4 on the other side, and it might leave it a wee bit more, give it a wee bit more balance, but there is a problem at the minute.
Yeah. Danny, you think there should be 16 teams, but just put it before we started recording, that is there too many teams, and you said no, you feel very strongly there's got to be 16 teams in it.
Yeah, I would have strong enough opinion on that, Charlie, based on, we're a county of 40 GAA clubs. So if we're saying we only have 10, 12 teams worthy of playing senior championship football, that's leaving you with 28 clubs who don't play at the top level. So when you're a club, like I only take it from my own experience at Nimura, we're either been junior or intermediate, and we've dabbled in senior when we've won intermediate championships. But those senior championship matches were massive for us.
Yeah.
You know, it was our chances to dine at the top table with the big clubs like St Eunan's and Good Ordney's boys, and that doesn't happen for every club in the county. And I think the more clubs that get exposed to that level of football, the better. Because if you're a young kid playing on the 14, on the 15, on the 16 in a club, and you've got a coach who wants you to be the best that you can be, you've got to offer senior championship football as a carrot. Because if you're saying you're going to play intermediate or junior only, I mean, they all want to play. They all want to be Michael Murphy, Ryan McHugh. They all want to play at the top level. So I think you give that carrot to as many clubs as you can, and then it's up to the clubs to step up. And if you look at the teams that qualified this year, Arua, for example, were in the doldrums there for a number of years, playing in, I think it might have been Division 3, playing intermediate championship for a number of years. This is their second year in a row now playing quarterfinals, senior championship. So if we reduced our senior championship to 10 clubs, Arua would not be playing senior championship. They'd still be intermediate. And other clubs in the same boat. So I would feel strongly that we keep it at 16. Look at the structures, as John says, because if you look at that structure we chatted about 2 minutes ago, I think that's the beginning of a 2-year cycle. So them same groups will exist again next year.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know if they can even change it in terms of seeding. But no, I know a lot of people think we have too many teams in the championship, but I mean, you look at the Premier League in England, you look at the All-Ireland Championship. How many counties can realistically win the All-Ireland? We're talking about a handful.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you deprive, you know, we're not at the top table in Donegal at the minute. You know, we're top, what is probably top 6. But if we slipped outside the top 8 and we're told, oh, you can't play the All-Ireland, you have to play not even a Tailteann Cup, something in between, then that takes a lot off the edge off your football in the county. So I think the more teams play senior football, the better.
Even if it means we're getting beat. We have 4 teams that played in the senior championship that didn't get a point, and we have Cloughaneely who got 1 point, and that was enough to keep them up, which they were delighted about, because obviously they came up last year, as you say, from intermediate football. But I mean, it's very lopsided, that, Danny, isn't it? The teams play 4 matches and they can't get even 1 point out of it.
Yeah, but that can come off the standard of the team you're playing against. Like, we can have, the team can lose 4 matches, but they might not be that bad a team. It depends who you come up against. I know, for example, Arua, for example, got what might be considered an easy draw, right? They played 4 teams that end up with 0 points.
Yeah.
And then the likes of Glenfin, McCool's, who we thought might make a quarter-final, got relatively tough draws. But as John says, that's the luck of the draw. That's championship football. You play who you play. But you're asking, are there teams that shouldn't be there? Well, you'll see now in the relegation playoffs, and this happened last year as well. We had 8 teams in the relegation playoffs, and they were some of the best games of the championship. Maybe not standard-wise, but in terms of excitement, competitiveness, and anything else. So
they've cut that down to 4 this year.
They've cut that down to 4, and you'll see what senior championship means to those 4 clubs when those 2 games happen, because that is their championship. In a nutshell, they don't want to get relegated to intermediate football. They want to play senior. Yeah.
Oh, you're right, because John, last year some of those matches were fantastic games. The 4 Masters Termon one in Convoy was a cracker of a game, and was it Termon and somebody in Convoy then Bundoran, cracker of a game as well. You know,
Terry, my point, and I would, you know, you have to look around you. So there's 16 teams in Tyrone, there's 16 teams in Derry in the senior championship. Most counties, big counties, have 16 teams. Mayo have 16, Dublin have 16, there's actually 32. You know, Armagh probably have 16. So we can't start condensing, you know, and as Danny says, reducing it to eliminate 4 or 5 clubs from playing senior championship football. My own experience, Charlie, right? My first year was 1995 with St Eunan's senior team. St Eunan's, people forget this, St Eunan's hadn't won a first round game in 7 years. So from 1988 to 1995, hadn't won. Now, you've been around there, Charlie.
Big teams.
And they had a good enough team, but they got Kilcar, they got Red Hughes, went to third games, great games, but got beat. So never got past a quarter, never got to a quarter final. Hadn't won a first round championship game in 7 years. 95, we got to a semi final, which is great for the club. We had a young team coming through. Glen Colm Kilbittis. 96, back again to a county semi final. Neve Columba Bettis again, an experienced team. 97. Devaney came, a few things happened, and we got to county final and won it. You know, so you can't give up, Charlie. You know, we were a young team.
You got to take a longer look at it.
Like as Charlie says, Arua now, this is their second year getting into quarter final. They have a chance against Gidor. Can they get to the semi-finals? So that's a team on the up. Can they challenge the big 4? You know, there's other teams there that have to. You know, Glen Swally, Charlie came from nowhere to win 3 championships.
Yeah.
Now they had Michael Murphy, they had Neil Gallagher, they had good players, Kane Bonner, but other teams have had good players too. Kilcar have had very good players and they've only won championship.
Yeah.
You know, St Michael's have very good players and have no championship. You know, Adrian Sweeney, Tony Boyle, Raymond Sweeney back in their day. You know, great team, no championship. So championships are hard to win.
Yeah.
But you know,
I'll give you an example of a club that would struggle, say 5 years ago, if we changed the system, and that's 4 Masters. Four Masters were Division 3 or 4 years ago, pre-COVID. They were not doing a lot in senior championship until they beat Glenswilly out in the Glen one day to survive that year.
That's right.
They, in that intervening period, they've also got their underage structures together. They're doing very well underage, right up through 13s, 15s and into minor. There's no doubt in my mind they have a vision that in senior that they will be competing to win a senior championship within the next 5 years, possibly, maybe 10 years.
Yeah.
But at least they have an opportunity to put that plan in place. Because if we're down to 8 teams or 10 teams, that's going to end up being an elite group. Might even be the 8 that have qualified this year, but maybe a McCoolson and Glenfinn possibly.
Yeah.
So then your intermediate championship that I'm invested in, that becomes almost impossible. Not impossible to win, but there's a possibility that the team gets relegated from the 8 will win the intermediate the year after. And you could have just 1 or 2 teams swapping places all the time. So I think we're grand as we are. I think a club of our county of our size, if we can't carry 16 senior clubs, then our county setup and everything will struggle after that. I think we need to keep. I mean, young players have to play senior championship, in my opinion.
So maybe, John, finally, just before we leave it, have a look at the seeded situation. Maybe give it a year or 2 and see how it works out.
I think so, Charlie. Yeah, no, I think so. We need 16 senior clubs, and clubs, as Danny said, need to step up. Need to have a long enough picture, not to just be worried about 1 or 2 years, and that give young players a chance to come through. And you're always building, Charlie. They're hard won, and not everyone can win them. Like at the end of the day, only one team can win the senior championship. Does that mean the rest of them are all rejects or they're all failures? No, they're not. Some of them have had great years. Some of them will be disappointed. Some of them have got a run to a county final, like Killybegs in 2013 and Mallinbet St Eunan's in 2013, and could have got to a county final. There could be a fairy tale somewhere along the line, and that's great progress for their team. So it's not all about the team that wins it. Clubs have something to play for. And like I said last year, Charlie, here, and it's funny that St Noel's had a great year last year, got to their first county quarter final. So I said that that they could go back to the pubs, and no one in my charge could say that there was a better team in the 1980s or a better team in the 60s.
Yeah.
They were the best team that ever came out of St Noel's. Now they've gone back. I don't know if they've gone back this year.
They've struggled.
Yeah. So even though they struggled, Charlie, last year was a great year for them. So you have to take.
But they should go back stronger next year because of this year.
Yeah.
Because they've been there last year in the quarterfinals. They've had to struggle this year, and if they survive, which will be a tough enough battle against the 3 teams that are there. But if they do survive this year, they've got to sit back and say, right, lads, is it going to be 2 years ago or last year? What's our standard? And if it was last year, if that's their standard, they've got to work towards that again.
Yeah. Well, St Michael's in another quarter final, no surprise, and they're always thereabouts. Glenswilly back in the quarter final, Danny, after skinning their teeth last year in terms of the relegation situation, and Killybegs 3 wins out of 4. And I saw them yesterday in Cloughaneely, going well, I have to say, well set up, plenty of good players, good forwards and that sort of thing. Good for those clubs to be back in the quarter final.
Yeah, definitely, Charlie. I think for anybody that watches football in the county, a lot of those names in the quarterfinals are the bigger clubs, the traditional clubs that have been there before. I mean, Killybegs have been there for years at the top table.
Yeah.
Glenswilly have won 3 county championships. Good to see them there. St Michael's, as you say, have always been knocking on the door without smashing through it at any stage. Irua is one of the big giants of the game, and then you've got your top 4. So we've got 8 really strong clubs in the quarterfinals this year. And you mentioned St Michael's at the start. St Michael's are a wee bit in transition. If you think about Colin gone and Christie's gone, but they're not totally in transition either. They still have Andrew Kelly and Martin McElhinney and Liam Paul Ferry still playing. And you wonder then, can Michael Langan become a Michael Murphy talisman for them and carry them into a county semi-final? Now they're up against St Eunan's, obviously, which is the toughest ask of all. But they're not going to go away in the next couple of years. St Michael's, I think they're always going to be knocking on the door. I think they've established themselves now as a top 8. And we'll be able to see how they develop over the next couple of years with Michael Langan driving it.
Right, cracking quarter-finals. The quarter-final now, Kilcara versus Killybegs, St Eunan's against St Michael's, Airua take on Gweedore, and Neve Connell play Glenswilly in what could be the tie of the round. The relegation situation, the semi-finals, Bundoran take on Milford and St Noel's play Ardra. There's some confusion about the senior reserve. There was a draw made, but apparently there's an adjustment now because the scoring average doesn't come in when there was a walkover situation. So I just saw today where there's going to be a 3-way playoff. I'm not exactly sure who's involved in that. Cloughaneely were the 8th team, so I presume they're going to, because they got in a scoring difference. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next week or so as well. Right, let's move on to the Intermediate Championship. Danny, we know now the quarter-final fixtures. Your own team, Neve Wara, taking on Dunlow. That starts it off in the O'Donnell Park. two other games on the O'Donnell Park at the weekend as well. Buncrana against Niamh Columba and Termon against Red Hughes. That's on Sunday. And also on Sunday, down at the Bridge in Dunfanny, Downings against Fannet Gales. Start with you, Danny. Dunlow beat you there in the last round of the league section, 2-7 to 7 points. Just looking at your situation, you finished in 8th position with 3 points. You were involved in several very tight games, and even the 2 games you lost, it was in the latter stages of those games that they kind of went away from you. Have you any hope?
I need to be careful what I say from my own lads, maybe listening, never mind Dunlow lads. But now, look, realistically, Charlie, this time last year, or October last year, we played Dunlow in the quarterfinals up in Ardra. Yeah. I was at that match myself, and look, we were well on a terrible night. The conditions didn't suit us or anything else, but look, we lost that night 13 points to 1-2. So what we've tried to do in between that is probably close that gap, and we played Dunlow, as you said, in the last group game. Now Dunlow were qualified, so how much did they show that night, I'm not so sure. But yeah, we were competitive on the night. It was 2-7 to 7, and we were in a tough group. I mean, going into the championship, I think we would have been ranked, of the group we were in, probably bottom of that group. Yeah, you had Fannet, Malin, Dunlow, Termon and Burt. And tough group. But in fairness to the boys, we pulled off a big result against Malin first day out. Yeah. And then we had Fannet beat the second and the third game, but they hit us with a late goal in the last couple of minutes. So in terms of where we're at, we're happy with the way we've developed since we started this year. Look, Dunlow are strong favourites on Saturday, Charlie. There's no point in me saying otherwise. I think everybody in the county expects Dunlow not just to beat us, but to go on and maybe win the championship.
Did you set a goal of the quarterfinals, Danny? Realistically, did you think you could make a quarterfinal?
Well, we set that goal, Charlie, definitely, because I think you have to be realistic in what you aim to do. We didn't set out to win the championship this year. We don't feel we're ready to do that. Now, if it comes our way, we'll take it. Yeah. But no, listen, we targeted the Gaeltacht final, which we got. We targeted promotion, which we got. And then we targeted survival into the championship, which means making the quarterfinal. Yeah. So we've ticked all those boxes, Charlie. So going into Saturday, there's no pressure on our lads, except they'll want to go out and perform on the day in a big stage. We haven't played in O'Donnell Park in about 5 or 6 years. Yeah. And that's where all the big games get played nowadays. Absolutely. So it'll be good exposure for our lads. We're a young team, Charlie, and we're trying to cut our teeth a wee bit. And it is a local derby, as you say. So look, we'll give it our best shot, but on ongoing form, you have to think Dunlow. Yeah.
Dunlow with a point to prove, John. Leave the Niamh Ora situation aside. They had the Intermediate Championship won last year. Cloughaneely came back from the dead in the first game. The cutters, as we were describing. The bottlers.
John called them that, Charlie. Don't be saying we. That was all on John.
Well, I think we're a collective here.
Oh, we're right, okay.
It has to go with it. But anyway, Cloughaneely came back then the second day and beat Dunlow. And Dunlow had to feel they left that behind them, that they should have been up in senior. So they have a wee bit of a point to prove.
Big time, Charlie. I was very impressed with them that first day against Cloughaneely. Yeah. They were excellent, and they played all the football and were a strong running team and good inside forwards, and they played a nice brand of football. And Deji Gallagher, and he had a son playing there, and big Ryan Connors, some nice players, and the current boys were there, some good players, Charlie, and they played a nice brand of football, but they got caught with them 2 goals by Cloughaneely, and I suppose never recovered. It always happens when you get caught like that. It's very hard to recover for the replay, and Cloughaneely got them. So definitely there's bound to be a lot of hurt in Dunlow over the winter, and they're probably thinking, we have to put right the wrongs of last year. But it's never that simple, Charlie. No. Just because you got beat and you think you should have won it, you think you come back next year and it'll just be plain sailing for you. And there'll be twists and turns along the road yet. But they're going well, Charlie. They've plenty of good players, and as Danny says, they're probably going to be a wee bit too strong for his boys at the weekend. But anything can happen. I suppose Danny's going to try and make it tough and Dunlow, and you're not going to give it to them all their own way. Maybe go defensive and see if you can stay in the game, and could be a couple of lucky goals like Cloughaneely got last year, and Danny's boys could get over the line. But you would think Dunlow, Charlie, probably on paper so far are going to be the form team in the Intermediate Championship.
Bit of pressure on them because it's a big local derby, obviously, against Niamh Ora, and they will be expected to win it. I mean, I think Danny has alluded to that as well. So there's no pressure on Niamh Ora, really, John, because the expectation is they've done well to get this far.
Well, Danny's ticked all the boxes for himself anyway. he's not going to get sacked by the board anyway.
I think I'm safe enough another year.
You're safe enough, Danny.
You get this contract renewed.
Contract renewed. Yeah, no, all the price there is under no, Charlie, and that's you would love to see it get tight in the second half. You know,
Yeah.
Niamh Warwick put it up to them and maybe get a goal and goal point up and get the crowd going and see how Donegal can respond to that day. You know, that's what you want to see in championship football.
Yeah.
But
Ask the questions.
ask the questions, a bit of drama, put the pressure on them. See, can they, you know, can they answer the questions? But that's up to Danny's boys to try and get that there. And, you know, say, listen, boys, let's have a go here. As Danny said, the pressure's off them. Have a go. Try and get a lead. Try and make it difficult for Donegal and see can Donegal respond, because, you know, this is the pressure now. This is not knockout stage. There's no second chance. So,
Yeah.
you know, Donegal need to be careful.
Danny, I'll finish with you on it. You haven't scored enough, probably. You haven't given away an awful lot in any of the games. And I was down to the Termon game. It was only late in that game that you conceded a goal or two as well. You know, so defensively, very, very good. Maybe need a bit more from the lads up front.
Yeah, I can't argue with that, Charlie. If you look at our scoring average, I think we're scoring in around 8 points per game.
Yeah.
Which, now look, when you consider the opposition,
Sure.
you factor that in. And the 2 nights we played down at home, there was a swirling, horrible breeze that kind of made it a game of 2 halves. So, yeah, you're right. At this business end of the championship, it's what you have up top, you know, determines where you go, if you're good enough to win a championship or not. So, look, we're going to need a big performance from everybody right around the pitch, you know. And to be fair to the lads, defensively, you know, we put a structure in place as you always do when you start a job. Just get your defensive shape first and then build from there. So, look, we'll go into the game, Charlie, as I said. John called it, you know, if we're competitive, then we'll feel we have a chance, but we have to get competitive first and get a performance and then take it from there. But yeah, they all need to step up, Charlie, everywhere.
Yeah. All right, Buncrana and Niamh Columba, John, it's a repeat now of the last series again, the matches as well, and Buncrana went down and were well beaten in Niamh Columba, but Niamh Columba have been so unpredictable this year, as they are every year, because they went and got a trouncing down in Downings, you know, and then they come and then they beat Buncrana, who were unbeaten up to that, but that has a potential to be a cracker of a game, that one.
It has, Charlie, and, you know, as I said, you know, I was at the Division 2 final between Downings and Malin, and PJ McGinley from Glencollinkil was over watching it, and I was chatting to him going in, and he said, you know, have to keep an eye on all these teams. We'll probably meet some of them down the line. So, you know, PJ was keeping his eye on the ball and keeping an eye on the opposition. So that's Buncrana this weekend. I suppose Niamh Columba, Charlie, I wouldn't have seen a lot of them, Danny. You would, and Charlie, you on your rounds would see more of them than me. But the last couple of years they've been talked up as maybe the team to win the Intermediate Championship and haven't just come through. I think it was 2 years ago now, was it against St Knolls, where they blew a lead over in Fintra.
And Rua caught them a couple of years ago.
So they've been thereabouts, Charlie. But, you know, we know what the Intermediate Championship's like, the same as the Junior Champs. Very, very competitive. Real, you know, a real dogfight every game at this stage. And the thing about Buncrana, Charlie, is they kind of are hot and cold, but they have quality players. You know, they've Jigger O'Connor and they've John Campbell and they've Keena McGonigal and a few others there, you know, I mean, that are good players at intermediate level, and if they can get them on the ball and get scores, you know, it could put it up to Niamh Columba. I don't know who Niamh Columba are a young fit team. They'll probably rely a lot on Aaron Doherty to get scores, and, you know, I think the weather forecast is good enough for the weekend, so the big pitch in O'Donnell Park could suit them. So you expect, Terry, a good game of football. What I was very impressed with, I know it was Downings and Malin in that Division 2 final, was they played a nice brand of football. You know, what you were, I was glad to see for Division 2. They were kicking it into inside forwards, and, you know, they weren't going over and back, looking to kick the ball inside. So, you know, I'd be expecting something similar from Buncrana and Niamh Columba.
Buncrana have to step up, don't they? I mean, as John says, they have plenty of talent there and perhaps haven't been as good as they should be, or some people think that, Danny. This is a big thing for them, but they score plenty, but unfortunately for them, they concede plenty as well. Yeah,
and this is a big test for them, Charlie, this game against Niamh Columba, because going into that game down in Glen in the fourth game, they went into it unbeaten. And I was at the Niamh Columba Downings game the week before that.
Yeah.
And
they got hockey down in Downings.
Niamh Columba were poor in the night, and they were the first themselves to admit that. And then to turn around the following week, and I was chatting to somebody who was at that game, I says, how did Niamh Columba turn that around? They were Buncrana off it. Buncrana weren't off it. Niamh Columba were completely on it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they ran hard at them, and they have Aaron Doherty, but they've Ryan Gillespie inside. He's a good player, you know. So now that was at home. You know, that was down in their own patch. So as John says, O'Donnell Park's a big open field. Buncrana, big, strong, physical team. But if Keena McGonigal gets going around the middle of the field, he's going to be hard to curb. Jigger, they've John Campbell inside. Glen will have to get their hands on the ball, and that might be the hardest thing to do against Buncrana because of their physical size out around the middle. But if Glen get their hands on the ball, they do have quality forwards as well. I think that game's really hard to call. Let's be honest. I think that's a
potentially
tough one.
cracker of a game, that one.
It should be, because when John says it's a quarter-final stage. If you get beat, you're gone.
Yeah,
That's there's a huge amount of stake. Those two teams would fancy their chances of winning the Intermediate Championship. So one of them is going to be gone on Sunday evening, and it'll be a long winter for whoever loses that game. So that's a big game, Charlie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to call it?
Do I want to call it? Based on, I haven't seen Moncrana. I haven't seen them, but based on the fact that they went down and got beat down in Glen, does that leave Glen vulnerable now, playing 2 weeks later? So based on that, maybe Buncrana to nick it.
Yeah, John?
Buncrana, I know what you're saying, Charlie. The Buncrana have a bit of heart now. They'll think that they didn't do themselves.
Depends what they've learned from that.
Depends
last
what they've
game.
learned, yeah. And it's very hard, Charlie. And I know it might only be in a group game, but Neve Columba won easy, and they're drawing again to play Buncrana, and they're saying, geez, we beat these boys easy 2 weeks ago. I know it wasn't their home patch, but complacency can be hard to get out of boys' heads, So, Charlie, I haven't seen enough of the two teams. It'd be unfair to.
And the other problem Neve Columba have, they played in the park last year in a quarter-final. Was it against Clough-Neely? Or Dunloe they played, and they didn't play well.
No, they were poor.
They were poor in the day. So if O'Donnell Park's a problem for them, then they're going to be in bother. But we'll see.
Termon Red Hughes. Termon got 7 points out of a possible 8. Speaking to Francie, he'd be the first to admit they've been iffy and good and iffy and good, and they've mixed the good with the bad, but they still got 7 points out of 8. You'd expect to beat Red Hughes.
You would, based on current form, you would. I suppose that Termon team, we've talked about them enough in here in the last couple of seasons playing senior championship, struggled to get results. I think their first win in over a year was against us in the championship.
Yeah.
I think they got a draw against Clonfin, maybe in the last league game. So with a young team, Charlie, you're going to get ups and downs. You might even get ups and downs during the 60 minutes, never mind from game to game. But they're sitting on 7 points. They'll look at that as being one of the better draws they could have got. Yeah. Maybe ourselves and Red Hughes, the two they would have wanted to take rather than one of the other group or the other teams. So, look, Termon's squad's very strong, Charlie. You see what the boys they can take off the bench, like Bobby McGettigan, who played full forward for the county under-20s this year. He hasn't really started a game for them yet. Jamie Grant's just back from America. I don't think he started yet. They sometimes start Stephen Black and Conor Black, other times bring them off the bench. So they have plenty of young talent available to them. And they have a good structure. They play defensively when they have to, and they break at pace. And then they have Darren McDade up top, quality forward. Enda McCormick's back from London. So all the ducks seem to be in a row for Termon at the minute, going into this latter stage of the championship. And they'll fancy their chances against Red Hughes. Yeah. I haven't seen Red Hughes this season. I don't know what they're like. I know from previous seasons they're quite dogged. They can be physical. They'll hang tough in the game. There, yeah. But I think Steve McMenamin might be in London these days. So I'm not sure if he's available to them or not. So if he's not there, or even he is there and he's not 100% at it, that's a big blow to them. But they have Jack Gillespie there that's quite good at free kicks and things. Yeah. So I think that's a game where you might find fairly defensive setup from Red Hughes, and Termon will be quite happy to mirror that on the other side and believe that it can hit them in the counter-attack or hit them with the running game. So again, based on what I've seen, you would think Termon would be too strong for Red Hughes. Yeah,
I saw Termon down in Fanet. They played very defensively in the first half that day with the breeze, only led by a couple of points, but then after half time, John, they went 6 points up and you thought game over. Michael Sweeney, I think, battered in a fantastic goal then to bring it back to 3. Termon got the next point to put it out to 4, but Fanet scored the last 4 points of the game, end up in a draw, and you just felt Termon left it behind them. Same thing down in Burt. They were on top, but it took them a long time to sort of put them away type of thing, But when they're good, they're very, very good. They finished very well against you guys.
They had a purple patch against us in the first half. The game was 3-3 and then went out to 10-3.
Yeah.
And they played a lot of good football that night at that time. But then, as you say, in the second half, when the finishing line was in sight, they retreated a wee bit and we got back to within 3 points, and we had a goal chance actually to get level with them. Now they finished off with was it 2 late goals or a couple of late scores to win by 6 or 7, but maybe that fear of losing was back in their psyche again because they've lost so many games playing at senior level.
Yeah.
But
no, they've plenty of quality, Cherry, but they are too defensive. I would say that to Francie. Too negative, playing too much defensive football and drilling into young boys. All right, we all want to win and you want to be competitive, but they have enough quality there to be playing more attacking football. And I've said that to Francie, and they're not like me saying it here, but go and play a bit more offensive, Francie. Everyone behind the ball, and I think that day's gone, Charlie. You know, it's gone a couple of years
It's
ago.
definitely changing the club football.
It's definitely changing, you know, and I think
Thankfully,
exactly, absolutely. Charlie and Terman Fancy needs to waking up and get them good young.
We'll be back in here with you boys.
Get them good young Terman boys playing good attacking football. Charlie, they were in Ulster Club final 2 or 3 years ago with that young team. Ray McFadden, good players, and Big Bobby McGilligan and Jack Alcorn, you know, plenty of good players. So, and then black boys too. You know, let them at it, but they're very controlled and very disciplined, and it's very, you know, a much get everyone behind the ball and play it safe, which I don't like, Terry. So, you know, but Francie won't like me saying this either, but Terman are their eye on bigger things than the Donegal Intermediate Championship. Charlie,
do you want to share with us?
What's bigger than the Donegal Intermediate Championship? They're looking at Ulster and they're looking further afield. So, you know, I think.
Well, that's good to hear they have that.
Well, yeah, well, you know, maybe that's why, you know, they're looking down the road. So I think, you know, from early on, Charlie, this year, I think Terman, once they went down last year, they regrouped and they thought, listen, you know,
give it a go.
There's a bigger picture than Donegal there at the Intermediate Championship. So I'm piling all the pressure I can on Terman. So Terman are, you know, but they'll
push the off button at this stage anyway. That's for sure.
So Terman will have too much for Red Hughes.
Well, Red Hughes had won their last game. I think they had to beat Convoy in their last game to qualify for the quarterfinals. So they're, I suppose, in the same situation maybe Niamh were, and they're going in very much as underdogs. Very few people will expect them to win. So that always gives you a chance.
It always gives you a chance, and you have to, same as Niamh were, they have to be competitive and keep themselves in the game. And you know, you might have a chance like that against Terman, because they're not going to come all guns blazing at you and try and blow you away. You know, they're going to be conservative and hold on to the ball and take their chances. So it mightn't be a high scoring game, so it might suit Red Hughes to stay in the game, you know.
Yeah. And that's a dangerous game for Terman to play, because the likes of Jack Gillespie, you know, if they do concede frees, he'll nail them.
Yeah.
And then if it becomes a low scoring game, then Terman aren't really playing to their strengths. And I think their strengths, I agree with John. I think in Darren McDade, they have a top quality forward, and McCormick the same.
Yeah.
And I like to look at this Stephen Black lad who played centre back against us. I know he played dabbles with Van Harps, he's got Bunagee at the minute, but I would say the next county manager.
One of the black lads got injured playing for Bunagee. Was that Stephen or Connor?
Could be, I'm not sure, but I think the next county manager could be having a wee chat with Stephen Black. I think he's definitely potential to be playing.
Potential there.
He's a good player.
Terman to won that one then?
Yeah.
Okay. The last one's Downey's against Fanet Gales. Are Downey's favourites at this stage to take the Intermediate Championship, do you think?
No, I don't think they're favourites,
No?
I don't think so. I think Dunloe and Terman would be, in my eyes, joint favourites.
Yeah.
And I think Downings are a very dangerous team after that.
Very dangerous.
Very dangerous.
They've got the forwards, isn't it?
They've got the forwards. That game John referred to against Malin, that league final that day, that was a brilliant game of football.
Great game of football.
And then I watched them against New Clumba that day, and they have very, very good forwards. Now they're light forwards, they're small forwards, and maybe a more physical team could maybe get stuck into them a wee bit. But when the game's an open game of football and them boys get their heads up and play, Keelan McGrady at half back's a good player. Lachlan Connors, you know, they've a young lad there played county minor. I can't think of his name now. Is they're playing up front for them, Ethan something.
Michael Wee, no.
Oh, Paddy Michael Wee, boys like that. Yeah, so they've plenty of armoury as well. So I don't think they're favourites, but they're definitely.
They have momentum, Danny, because they come out of the junior last year and went into Ulster and did a very good run in Ulster. Got promotion as well, you know, and won that league final. Now they lost their opening game. Was it their opening game they lost to the second one?
In the championship, they beat by Buchanan.
Buchanan beat them, and then they had to play 3 games in 8 days.
That's right,
and they won them pretty comfortably and all that sort of thing. So that's the reason I'm throwing out are the favourites, because they seem to have that momentum going with them, and they're capable of scoring plenty, John.
Oh no, that's the first time I'd seen them in a long time. Charlie was out in O'Donnell Park in that league final. Very impressed. So I loved the brand of football they were playing and getting it in early to the forwards and kicking it on. And they have a big boy from Kelly Clogher there, McGilligan. He signed for them over the. Like his father, he might have moved down to Downings, and he's signed for them, and he's a good player in midfield, big strong lad and big Shane boys, you know. So they've got plenty about them, Charlie. And as you say, momentum's a massive thing. They're on a high down there, and fair play to Cookie for getting the whole, you know, community behind them and the whole club rowing the one way and getting all their best players on the pitch and having something to play for. And like a team for Downings to be in Division 1, Charlie, we chat about 16 teams in the senior championship, and is there too many? Look at Downings, like they're a generation now of players that have come from Division 4 and now next season they're in Division 1, you know, and they'll be pushing hard. You can try and say that, you know, we've played senior championship. If they do win it, you know, we'll be playing Division 1 next year, and they can go back to Downings, to the pubs, and say to the boys in the bar that are slagging them, you never played senior championship in Donegal, you know, or you never played Division 1 when you were playing. You know, it's a bit of crack, Jerry, but at the same time, them boys
means something, John.
They should have a lot of pride in that, and realise that they're doing something for their community and their wee club that, you know, has struggled for a long time, emigration or low numbers, but you know, Cookie's got them all there, and you know, I've seen them out in the park and a big support with them, and you know, everyone buying into it, and it's great to see. And no more than Malin that day, poor Malin have fallen away since that day, but
badly.
You know, the big support with them too, and it was great to see. And they were trying to get back in Division 1 because Malin have fallen off a wee bit too. So it's great to see them small clubs, Jerry, doing well, and fair play to Downings. You know, if they can win this intermediate championship, it'll be a fairy tale story. But I would expect them to beat Fanet at the weekend.
Fanet came back from the dead against Termon that day down in Port Salon, you know, 6 points down. They got a very late equaliser against you guys as well. Yeah. And then they had to win their last game to get into the quarterfinals. So, you know, they're thereabouts, Danny. They're not too far away. And they've shown guts and determination when they've been behind to come back. Always a good sign of a team.
Yeah, and I think, was it 2 years ago, the last time the All-Ireland Gaeltacht was held, Downings hosted it and they played Fanet in the final. And Downings were strong favourites going into it. And Fanet turned them over. Yeah. So this is a local derby as well. So the big thing with Fanet, like Fanet are obviously well organised with Barry Meehan in charge there along with Aidan McAteer, but the Michael Sweeney factor is huge. Yeah. There's no point denying that. The night we played
literally them, huge.
Yeah, the night we played them, we were in control of it. They might argue differently, but I felt we were in control of that game. We were 5 points up with about 10 minutes to go. Seamus Ali came off the bench. He's carrying a bit of a knock, but Michael Sweeney came off the bench. And all of a sudden then, the way they play changes. Yeah. They've now got the long ball option. So they peppered a couple of balls in, we defended them well, but then Sparky picked up a couple of breaks, then they got 2 points on the board. And then because Michael's in there, even if he moves from there, people are quite happy to let him have it out the field as long as he doesn't do damage inside. Yeah. And then he set up the equaliser in the last minute. So no matter which way their game is going, they always have that option. And it worked against Termon, it worked against us. Yeah. And if that game against Downings is still tight with 5 or 10 minutes to go, you can be guaranteed that they're going to launch ball in on top of Michael Sweeney, and then can Downings then cope with that? So Downings will probably need to be ahead, a good bit ahead maybe, going into the latter stages, because no matter whether you played intercounty football or club football, that high ball in needs to be defended. Yeah, it needs to be defended, and not every team defends it well.
And I suppose there was talk of that game would have been in O'Donnell Park, but it doesn't seem to suit the two clubs, and they couldn't agree. So Fanet are probably happier that it's in the Bridge, a smaller pitch. Yeah, you know, Downings probably would like the wide open spaces of O'Donnell Park. So as you say, like, it's easier to kick a ball into the full forward line from the Bridge. You know,
you won your back as well.
Exactly. You know, so good point, Danny. You know, Michael Sweeney could be, you know, he could cause.
But you're right on the Dunfanny aspect of it, because that is a tighter pitch, and if there is a wind blowing on Sunday afternoon, like, Downings are very much a speed based team. Yeah, you know, and they like to get their heads up and they like to play football. Down the Bridge often turns into a battle rather than a game of open football, and Fanet have proven that they battle, and they've proven that they hang tough in games. So I think that there is really hard to call that game between two
to call, right?
I think I would have gone. But Danny knows more about the intermediate than me.
You go with Downings?
I'm going with Downings, yeah.
Very good.
I might get a caravan down there, Charlie. Like Andy Connors might look after me if I keep tipping Downings.
Listen, the Intermediate Championship, I know we're repeating ourselves from previous years, but it's always fascinating because of the closeness of it and how close the teams are, Danny. I mean, and we're seeing obviously the evidence this year again. You're looking at those 4 quarter-finals, you're thinking, yeah, this is 1-on-1 and that one, but you're just not 100% sure, because we've seen in the past anything can happen.
Look, the big thing with the Intermediate Championship, Charlie, compared to the senior, right? You can be a bigger team in the senior and have an off day and get away with it, right? And won't cost you. You have an off day in the Intermediate Championship, you're in bother. Yeah. So if any one of those bigger teams, say Termon, Dunlow, for example, who else if we're making favourites from other games, say even Buncrana, if they are not completely on it in the quarterfinals, they're going to get beat. They're not going to get away with it. Not in the Intermediate Championship. It's too competitive. Yeah. And there's very little between the teams. And a lot of it comes down to a bit of quality at the end, or maybe a bit of luck, a referee's decision. Who knows? Because historically, if you look at semi-finals in the past number of years, they've all been tight. They've been extra time in semi-finals. So the Intermediate Championship, if you come out on top of that one, you've earned it. Absolutely. Now, I don't know whether the standard is high enough to go in and win an Ulster Intermediate Championship or not. I don't think we've, as a county, we've done that much. Maybe got a final. Bundoran, did they get a final once?
Swilly once.
Yeah.
But even last year, Charlie, on that point, I would have thought that Cloughanedy would have had enough for Stagetown, or would have done better.
But then they won the All Ireland.
Then Stagetown went on and won the All Ireland. You know, so you mightn't be that far away.
They weren't that far away.
No, they weren't that far away.
They got another break.
Yeah, exactly. It was the week after because the game was the replay. So things like that.
But I think the point John made earlier on about Termon saying, I was saying Termon are planning for Ulster, but the reality is all those teams, whether they senior, intermediate or junior in Donegal now, are thinking beyond the county. Right? Because they're all planning to win the championship. They all believe they can win a championship. But then they don't just stop at that. They don't celebrate that for a week. That's parked and let's go into Ulster and give it a rattle. So that's a big sea change in this county in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Just want to finish off on the intermediate. Burt versus Niamh Breed and Convoy versus Malin are the two semi-finals for the relegation. Malin in Division 1. Is it inconceivable that they might drop down to junior football, Danny?
It's not, because when you're in a bad run,
which they're on at the
minute. You know that. I mean, we go back to that game they played against Downings. I thought they were really good on the night.
Yeah.
And we played them then. I think it was the week after or 14 after the first.
That was costly on them, Danny. Going
psychologically huge.
Psychologically, and they lost Benny McLaughlin, their best.
Yeah, he didn't play against us. And then the second day out, Christie was missing. He was at a wedding in America. So that was their two of the better forwards gone.
Yeah.
And they got caught by Burt. And that was the killer result. If they had won against Burt, they probably would have got something then to make the quarterfinals. And Malin in a quarterfinal, you'd probably talk them up as being potential champions of it. But now they're sitting in a relegation scrap. And I wouldn't fancy playing Burt in a relegation scrap, nor Convoy. And who's the fourth one, Charlie? Niamh Breed. That's going to be a battle.
Burt, Niamh Breed. Burt will be favourites there. Convoy against Malin. 50-50.
Depends what Malin turns up.
Absolutely. Intermediate Reserve Championship, Dunlow versus Fanet Gales, Termon versus Buncrana, Niamh Columba versus Malin, and St Mary's Convoy versus Red Hughes are all on next weekend as well. I just want to briefly look at the Junior Championship before we finish. Quarterfinals in Junior A, John, St Eunan's, Narossa, Carndonna, Urus, and already through to the semi-finals, Letterkenny Gales and Nivolton got through because 3 teams finished on 6 points and they had the better scoring difference from the matches between those teams. They hadn't the best scoring difference, but just between the teams. So Carndonna, Urus, big any show in Derby. St Eunan's, Narossa.
Aye.
Won't be much on that.
Won't be much. No, our boys are going well, Charlie. It's kind of, people are asking me what is this St Eunan's junior team and who, what way is it made up? But what has kind of happened, Charlie, we've been pushing it for a couple of years to try and get our reserve players to play Junior A.
Yeah.
And it was a hard sell because they wanted to be playing in front of the senior team and training, and it wasn't really training because Rory has a big squad training, but it was a hard sell to boys.
Psychologically, they were dropping.
Yeah. But anyone that knows reserve football this last few years, Charlie, and knows junior football, knows that Junior A football is a far higher standard. It's far higher standard. There's no beating about the bush there. So with the St Noel's, St Noel's not feeding the reserve team the first day out, and Bundoran not feeding the reserve team our second day out, meant that them boys weren't cup tied. They could play junior, so they have seen then, unfortunately, Terry, that reserve football is becoming a bit of a joke. I don't like to say that, but there's 2 senior teams that couldn't field a team at reserve. So boys are beginning to see serious issue, Charlie. The standard's not great. Glenties have a good reserve team. Unans, Gidor. I don't even know what Kilcare's like, but after that, Charlie, it's middling enough. You know what I mean? So we're lucky now that a good few of our players have stuck with the Junior A, and it's good for us. And we've got young players coming through. Peter McGeehan and Adrian McClafferty are doing a good job. So when you've got Rory Cardhagen out and Conor Morrison, who didn't play last year, you know what I mean, Charlie? It's fallen into place because Conor was injured for 2 years, so he can play Junior A. Rory Card didn't play at all last year. He can play Junior A. Lee McMonigal only played reserve, so he's dropped down to Junior A. You can't go down 2 grades. You can only go down 1 grade in a year. So a few things have fallen into place to make that team stronger than they have been, ever. So they're going to be competitive, Charlie.
Yeah,
we've got some good players on that team. Cormac Finn.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's going to be a good game.
Good spread of teams from the county. You have Carndonna and Urus coming from Inishowen. You have Narossa coming from the west, and Eunice and Letterkenny Gales, and then from the south, Nivolton. So well represented in those 8 teams that are left on that championship, Danny.
Oh yeah, and I think we're all looking forward to St Eunice, Letterkenny Gales can counter down the line if it happens. But that Narossa team will be hard to beat, Charlie. I know Eunice have a strong Junior A team out, but Narossa, They've the right of it. And then if you look at Carndonna, the Conor O'Donnell factor,
that's right.
If he comes back, that propels them into a serious place going into the
championship.
Good championship.
Good championship. The B Championship, Niamh Ulton and Lifford are the winners of the sections there. They're through to the semi-finals. The quarter-finals, Robert Emmons against Muff, Letterkenny Gales against Doris. So again, Inishowen well represented and the rest of the county represented there as well. The C Championship has some sorting out to do yet. There's a couple of matches to be played in the A section, but Unions look as if they're through. Whether it's going to be as group winners or not depends on Glenswilly against Dunlow. But Glenswilly, Glenfinnan, Dunlow, all in with a chance of making the last 6 or whatever it's going to be. Niamh Connell and McCool's are already through from the second section there. So a lot of football over the next few weeks. There's been a lot of football over the last 5 weeks, John, but there's a lot to come.
And it's great, Jerry. Oh, it is brilliant, Jerry. And we're going to get down to the business end now. From now on, it's knockout, and that's going to bring an extra bit of pressure and bigger crowds and more excitement to the whole thing and neutral venues and all that there. So with the split season, Jerry, it's given us a chance to start the championship earlier. We're getting good weather. We're getting dry pitches, which is hopefully going to give us a better spectacle now over the next few weeks. I think, looking at the senior, there's a 2-week gap, then there's a quarter final and the semi final, 2-week gap. So like the county final is going to be played, I think, on the 8th or 9th of October,
something
the senior final and the intermediate pub. So we're, hopefully the weather will stay fine, Charlie, and we won't have the wet days and the wind, and it'll give a better spectacle for the supporters.
I'll tell you, I was in Clonneely yesterday. It was a cracker of a game, Clonneely and Killybegs. Killybegs just got away, and the goals made the big difference for them. Hugh McFadden was fantastic, absolutely brilliant. Scored the 3rd goal, and that finished the game as a contest. Clonneely were chasing them, but they weren't far away until that 3rd goal went in. But it was a great game.
But the big thing we're seeing this season, we talked earlier on about, is there a change of style of play from defensive to the big man Deja Squares coming back. Hugh McFadden, Killybegs, Murphy and Glenswilly.
Murphy was catching everything. Tommy was telling me before we started that somebody has put. There's a great photograph of catching the ball. Somebody has a kitchen sink included in one of them as well. So I think it was nearly as good as that.
And Big John Campbell and Moncrana. So teams are definitely changing their style, which is good to see. All
right, I just want to mention the Ladies' Championship in Group 1 yesterday. There was big ones. A big one for Termon over Moville. St Eunan's just got the better of St All's, 3-9 to 2-10, and then Glenfinnan were too strong for Buncrana. In the Junior A, the winners were Downings, Dunlow, Niamh Columba, Gweedore, and in Junior B, Kilcar, Niamh Patrick, and A. Rua's second team. Again, I'm repeating myself, John, but teams from all over the county there. Great to see it in women's football.
And there was a cracker of a game last week, Jerry, the minor final between Dunlow and St Eunan's over in Convoy, and it went to extra time. And Dunlow won it, and I know Tony Boyle was
very happy.
Very happy, and Tony's a lot of daughters playing there, so it's great. No, Terry, the ladies' football, it's going well. I suppose they were so unlucky this year, the senior team against Meath. If they had won that, you thought they would have won the All-Ireland final. It was
10 or 15 minutes after half time that day.
It was there for them. So we're very close, Charlie. We're at the top table of ladies' football, and it's great to see, and it's great to see you need all your clubs producing players, and it's great for ladies football, Charlie. It's a great competition, great to have the girls involved, and they're it's a great standard.
The commitment they give is fantastic.
It's the same as the men, Charlie. So bring it on.
Absolutely. All right, Danny, we'll try and be neutral. We wish you well for the weekend, and we'll be watching anxiously how that game goes, because you finished last of the quarter-finalists, but that doesn't necessarily mean you'll finish last of the quarter-finals.
Well, hopefully not, Charlie. We'll give it a blast. We'll see how it goes.
You have a wee plan, but you're not going to share it with us, obviously.
I hope it's attacking football, Charlie. I don't slate him next week for a doer.
I'll give you the floor next week, John, to give you an idea. All right, Danny and John, thanks a million. Thanks to Tommy here at Full Tilt Studios for looking after us. As always, we'll be back next week with the Donegal Daily, Donegal Sport Hub podcast. By that time, we'll know the semi-finals for the Intermediate Championship, and we'll be previewing the quarter-finals of the Senior Championship, among other things. Thanks for joining us. The Donegal Sport Hub Donegal Daily Championship podcast.